everyone, Jumbo, which means hello and welcome aboard. My name is Kayla and I'm going to be your safari guide today on our tour through the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. For your safety, please stay seated at all times and make sure you're keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside of the vehicle as well. Also, if you're going to be using your cell phones and cameras to take any pictures out there today, make sure you've got a tight grip on them as the road ahead is going to be a little bumpy. And also, please, as a courtesy to those around you, make sure you're keeping on your facial coverings as well for the duration of our journey.
Oh, it wasn't bad. It had
Now we're coming up into the Little Ituri Forest, the first area of our reserve. Here, animals have coats that help them to camouflage in really well with their surroundings. That keeps them safe from predators, but also makes it a little difficult for us to spot at times. It looks like right on our left, yep, we're seeing a greater kudu, and we're seeing another one on our right there. They've got that really beautiful grayish-brown coat. They're some of the tallest antelopes in all of Africa. And then also behind the tree over there, on top of that hill, you can see the hind legs of the okapi. Their legs are striped black and white, and they look really similar to a zebra. Okapi are more closely related to the giraffe, however. They share a really similar skull shape, and they have the same prehensile tongue, which means that they use their tongue to grasp at the vegetation that's just out of their reach. And then look over on your right, that's a really beautiful orange chestnut antelope. It's called the bongo. Bongos are really shy and reclusive animals, and they like to stay hidden as much as they can. That's how they get their nickname, the ghosts of the forest. Whenever we get to see them out on the reserve, it is such a treat because they do like to stay hidden as much as possible. And keep an eye on your left across this watering hole. You're going to see a black rhino resting right next to that tree over there.
See the rhino?
And black rhinos can grow to be about 3,000 pounds when they're fully grown adults. And they can charge at speeds of about 35 miles per hour on land. Sadly, the black rhino population is dwindling, and that's due to the poaching for their horns. Their horns are made out of keratin, which is the same protein that makes our fingernails and our hair. That doesn't serve any sort of scientific purpose, but their horns are just sold on the black markets. That's why you'll see rhinos living on reserves like ours and on other ones in Africa. We do all that we can to advocate for them and keep them safe and help regrow their population. There on our left, you're going to see two of those really beautiful black and white birds. Those are called saddle-billed storks. You see they've got that really bright yellow patch on top of their bill. It has a sort of curve to it, and it's shaped like a saddle. That's how they get their name. Now, the saddle-billed storks are extremely solitary birds, so seeing them in a pair like that, how we just saw, is really rare. Friends, now we're coming to the edge of the Little Ituri Forest. Now we're entering the Safi River. We're going to see it up here on our right. Keep an eye out for any sort of shadows you can see under the river. It might just be an animal trying to keep cool, like a Nile hippopotamus. I think we can see a couple over on our right, in fact. There is a spot up ahead where they like to congregate as well, so hopefully we can see some up ahead here. The hippos do like to spend the majority of their time completely underneath the surface of the water because it's really easy for them to get overheated. They can spend as long as 8 minutes underneath the water before they need to come up for air. Look over on your left, right behind that island there, we can see a group of the hippos. A group of hippos is also called a bloat, so we're looking at a bloat of hippos over there. And with all the time that hippos spend in the water, you would think that they would be really excellent swimmers. And hippos, in fact, don't swim at all when they're in the water. They let themselves sink down through it, and then they walk or run along the bottom of the river there, and that's how they get around. The only time they really do come out of the water is, again, to get a breath of air, or at night they'll come out onto the banks of the river, and that's when they do their eating. Hippos can grow to be about 5,000 pounds, but for their weight, we really don't eat that much, just about 80 pounds of vegetation a day. After this waterfall on our left, take a look down. You're going to see a small group of Nile crocodile down there. Ooh, gator! We can see some of those crocodiles that are furthest away from us along the riverbank there. They have their mouths just wide open and they're laying there like that. Crocodiles don't actually open their mouths to show aggression. They do it to help them cool off. They're ectothermic, which means that they don't have any sweat glands on their body. So since they can't expel their heat by sweating, they keep their mouths open instead, and they let the heat escape that way. Now the Nile crocodile is the largest species of crocodile in Africa. They can grow to be about 500 pounds and 16 feet long. They can also live for a pretty long time, about 40 years. Friends, we're about to enter the savanna up ahead, which is the largest area of our reserve. To greet us on our right is this beautiful baobab tree. Baobab trees get the nickname upside down tree because it does look like they were flipped upside down and like their roots are sticking up in the air. Those are in fact just its leafless branches. The baobab trees remain leafless for the majority of the year because it helps them to conserve water. They keep all of that water inside of their trunks, and that helps them to live for thousands of years out here on the savanna. That's how they get their other nickname, actually, the Tree of Life. Coming down this curve gives us such a beautiful view of the savanna up ahead, and it gives us a little glimpse of the animals that we're going to be seeing out here. Many animals call the savanna their home, and they all work together to help take care of their environment. The grazing animals like wildebeest and zebra will graze at the grass. The tall giraffes will use their really long tongues to pick at some of the foliage on the smaller trees and the larger bushes out here. And then the really large animals like elephants will actually bulldoze down some of those smaller trees and then use their trunks to pick out the foliage. The first couple animals we're seeing on our right, we see a couple of Maasai giraffe among those trees over there. And then up ahead, that grayish animal, that's the white-bearded wildebeest. Now the giraffes here we have on the reserve are Maasai giraffe. Another common species of giraffe is the reticulated giraffe. To tell the difference between them, you just need to look at their coats. As you can see, the Maasai giraffes here, their spots have more rough edges to them, and there isn't really a regular pattern to their spots. But the reticulated giraffe have a much more neat and clean-cut appearance, and the spots themselves are much more straight and again clean around the edges. The wildebeests over here, we'll always see them in large herds like this. They like to live in really densely packed herds because it keeps them safe from predators. And if you look out on your left, right above these bushes, you're going to see a small pack of the wild African dogs. You should be able to see them after this rock up here as well. Wild African dogs are really social animals. They stay in packs of about 5 to 15 dogs per pack, and they're led by an alpha male and an alpha female, and together they act as the breeding pair for the pack. And despite how cute and cuddly they look, they're actually the most successful predator in all of Africa. They have an 80% success rate when they hunt. To give you an idea of how high that is, most other predators out here just have about a 40 to 50% success rate. On our left, another Maasai giraffe, and then we can also see a couple of Hartmann's mountain zebra. That small zebra over there is the newest member of our reserve. He was born just about 2.5 weeks ago. As you can see, he's already got those extremely long legs. Newborn zebras do have legs that are almost as long as a fully grown adult. They're able to walk and run fairly quickly after being born. Newborn giraffes are actually the same way. When giraffes are born, giraffes give birth standing up, so when they're born, they take a drop of about 6 feet onto the ground below them. That gives them a shock to them, and it lets them be able to stand and walk within an hour of birth. That gives them an edge against their predators because if they're able to stand and walk, then they're better able to defend themselves and run away from danger. In fact, one of the smaller giraffes we can see up here on our left, right behind that termite mound there. Giraffes are about 6 feet tall when they're born, and when they're adults, they can grow to be about 20 feet. You can see a taller one on our left there by that tree.
Oh Lord, no. I thought he was coming over here for a minute.
In addition to being really long, the giraffe's legs are really strong as well. They can carry them at speeds of about 35 miles per hour for shorter distances, and then they can cruise at about 10 miles per hour over longer travels.
Oh, really?
They rely on their legs mainly to run away from their predators, but like I said, they're also very strong and they're able to take their predators if they're approached at a close proximity. A lot of the animals that we saw out here on the savannah take part in what's called the Great Migration. Every year, animals travel across the savannah in Africa in search of fresh grass to eat, and so they follow where the rain falls during the rainy season. The distance that each animal travels varies from species to species, but at most they travel 1,000 miles in search of that fresh grass. Keep an eye out on your left and right as you're coming through this watering hole here. On our right, you're going to see an African elephant right across that watering hole, and on our left, you can see a couple of mantril monkeys playing in the trees over there. You'll be able to tell when we pass them a little bit. Mandrills have those really bright red and blue facial markings. They appear on both the male and the females, but they're a little bit brighter on the males. And in fact, they can get even more bright and vibrant when the males get excited, so they do change color a little bit. The elephant that we saw was all alone back there in that clearing, so there's a pretty good chance that he was a male. There he is again on our right. Male elephants do tend to be more solitary and independent than the females. In fact, when they're fully grown, they will leave the group that they grew up with in favor of venturing the savannah by themselves for the majority of the rest of their lives. Sometimes they will come across another solitary male elephant in the wild, and then they'll join together to form a group just of the males, but for the most part, they do like to be alone. Like now we're driving through the other side of those red clay pits that we saw that elephant so close by to on the other side of us. Elephants do like to live and travel in areas that are abundant in red clay. They use their tusks to dig into it and loosen it up, and then they use their trunks to grab at the clay, and they will eat and fully digest it. The clay contains a lot of nutrients and minerals that are essential to the elephant's well-being and that they can't get in other parts of their diet. You can see a couple over there on our left, in fact. It looks like they're eating now some of their normal diet, which is brush and roots that they find on the ground. So when they eat the red clay, it's almost like when we take a multivitamin to supplement our diet. The tusks are essential to elephants because without them, they're really not able to dig into that hardened red clay because it does bake and get so hard out here in the savannah sunlight. That makes it all the more sad that elephants are poached so frequently for their tusks. Poaching is still a really large problem in Africa, and that's why you'll see elephants on reserves like ours and on other ones in the savannah. We do everything we can here to raise awareness for them and advocate for the elephants in the future, and let people know that poaching is still a really large issue that threatens them every day. You can see a couple of them back there again on our left. Looks like a couple of those elephants are flapping their ears. Elephants flap their ears because it helps keep them cool. Their ears are obviously very large, and when they flap them, it creates large air currents that waft over the blood vessels that are behind their ears. On this island next to us on our left, you can see a group of greater flamingo. Greater flamingo get their name because they're the largest species of flamingo in the world, and they're also the lightest pink in color. They get their pink color from the brine shrimp that they eat and find in the water. The shrimp contains a protein called beta-carotene, and it's that beta-carotene that once ingested changes their feathers pink. That's why sometimes you'll see a smaller looking flamingo. It appears more white or gray in color, It just hasn't ingested enough of that beta carotene yet to really affect the color of his feathers. Keep an eye on your left. We're gonna see a couple of white rhinos right next to us there. That larger one is a fully grown female. She's about 5,000 pounds. And then next to her is another really new member of our reserve. He was born about 7 months ago. You can see they've got a little bit of discoloration on their bodies there. That's because they were probably just rolling around in those mud pits that are behind them. Rhinos like to roll around in those mud pits because it helps firstly to keep them cool. The mud also acts as a natural sunblock, so once it coats their entire body and hardens, it'll protect them from the really harsh rays of sunlight. The mud also acts as an insect repellent and it keeps bugs away from them. Because of the shadows of the trees, but you can see a cheetah resting next to that tree over there. And cheetahs are the fastest land mammal in the world. They can run at speeds of about 60 miles per hour on land. They can't maintain that speed for very long though, just for a couple hundred yards at a time. Cheetahs are unique from other big cats because they like to do their hunting during the day. A lot of other big cats are nocturnal and prefer to be active at nighttime. To help them see while they run, cheetahs have black markings on their face that run from the inside corner of their eyes down to the outside corner of their mouth, and they help to absorb the rays of sunlight so they can see more easily. This rock formation on our left is called the Kobe Rocks. A lot of predators will perch up here for long periods of time because it's a great vantage point from which to view the grasslands that are around them. It helps them to more easily pick out their prey so they're not wasting their energy running around in the grasslands themselves. In fact, moving around on top of those rocks there, we can see a couple of predators. Looks like there's a male lion. He's resting on one of those rocks up there, and then walking along the top and resting, it was a lioness. Like I mentioned, lions are mostly nocturnal animals. They sleep for anywhere from 16 to 20 hours during the day. They need to preserve all the energy they can for when they're active at nighttime. It's at night that the female lionesses will go out and do the hunting for the rest of their pride. While they're hunting, the male lions will stay back. They guard their territory and protect their cubs from harm.
Saving it for later.
Once it comes back in Africa.
A beautiful warthog over there on our left. Warthogs are related to the domestic pig, but unlike the domestic pig, they can run at about 35 miles per hour on land. They also have those really long tusks. They're really strong. They use them to dig into the dirt and they create burrows for themselves. And then here on our right, you can see a small group of white rhinos back there. And then you can see this antelope just behind this bush there. The antelope is called a bontebok. The white rhinos are mostly docile creatures. They're really gentle for the most part and not very territorial. So they do live in harmony out here in the savannah with a lot of the other antelopes. Friends, we have reached the edge of the savannah now, and now we're About to be driving through the Magadi Glen, which is the last area of our reserve. The Magadi Glen is where our warden's post is located. The post acts as the headquarters for our warden here and the rest of the staff who work on the reserve. And this is also where the warden keeps his small herd of Nigerian dwarf goats. The Nigerian dwarf goats are really social and playful animals. They like to play around with each other by chasing each other around the post here. Even we'll see them headbutting sometimes. They don't do this to be aggressive, but they do it because they need to stay physically strong and mature. The goats that you see here are fully grown adults, so they're not going to be growing anymore for the rest of their lives, so they need to participate in all the activities that they can to stay strong. The Nigerian dwarf goats also do a lot to help out the warden. They tend to the land here in front of the post. They eat a lot of vegetation that other animals don't really like to eat. So all sorts of weeds and other undergrowth and ivy, the Nigerian dwarf goats will really happily munch away on. And since they help out the warden by tending to that vegetation, the warden helps them out by keeping them safe there in front of his post and protecting them from predators. Just like how the warden and the goats help out each other, there are lots of ways that we can help out the wildlife all around us, and in return they'll be helping us out too. One great way to do this is by planting flowers in your backyard or keeping them on your balcony or patio at home. This is going to attract pollinators like honeybees into your area. A lot of the vegetation that we see around us every day would not exist without pollinators, including a lot of the produce that we eat every day. Some other great ways to help out the wildlife that we saw here today are just by conserving your use of recyclable items and recycling them when you can. This includes products like single-use plastics, paper, and even your electronic devices. Many of the animals we saw out here would greatly benefit from the conserving of those items, and when not possible to conserve or use, recycling them. Probably my favorite way, though, to help out with protecting this wildlife is just by spreading awareness about them. So consider telling your family members and your friends about the animals you saw out here on our reserve. Yeah. We can all make little changes that are going to help out with these animals, but it's only going to be all together that we can make a really, truly big difference.